Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Great. Good afternoon. It's September 2nd, 2022, and you are now watching the non-PC housing, and you might see that there's somebody missing. You want to talk about that, Rebecca?
Poor Betsy.
Yeah.
Betsy's no longer here with us, but she's here with us in spirit. She's moved on to bigger and better things in her career, and we want to say salute to you,
Salute.
Betsy. Thank you for getting us started
Best
and
endeavors,
putting up with us.
So now it's the last two women standing.
We will not be arm wrestling just yet for the last position.
No,
but
so just one of us
we're here,
talking right
we're
now.
here for
No.
you.
No, we think we can stick it out. And I'm trying to provide still good information that people can use. And if you don't recall, our last episode was about changes needed, and we had some suggestions and talked about some of the things we see as gaps and breaks in what's available out there and how people can get their hands on funding or assistance and that sort of thing. So that was what we started with. But we didn't think we completed the conversation, and even after today. Probably still won't complete the conversation. It's ongoing. But we'll try to get to a point where we can pick another topic for the next episode and move on as things develop in this area. Because that's just a problem. It's like there's a lot of problems with gaps. I see it from landlords. I see it from tenants. Both the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we can't, and that's kind of why this is up here. I had this idea. It's like, because the organizations that are handing us the money, that get that from the state, and then before that, the feds, they see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. And I guess my main concept is that they're filling their mission statement, which still doesn't solve the problems. So, I could go on and on, but I wanted to make sure we covered the areas you wanted to talk about today.
Right. So, I want to bring everybody back to our topic is changes needed. This is a non-PC housing, which we pretty much lay it all on the table. We have hard conversations. We invite people. We actually do have a few comments from some listeners from the last show. So we invite you to comment through our email. Our email will be up on the screen, and we're also looking at maybe a Facebook page to post these and then have a deeper discussion with people that are interested in talking about some hard stuff that's going on in Bellows Falls. I'm worried right now about the future of funding for people that have been subsidized for 18 months. And I know you have some issues with some agencies in town that are supporting some of our community members in housing and our landlords. So why don't you start that off whatever way you want to? I know you have a comment from a couple of guests in there. I don't know if you want to start off that way.
I can do that. Also, at least one or two of the legislators out there watch us from time to time, and or maybe pick us up on YouTube or on Fact TV, and they've had some positive comments. They didn't want it to be named, but they did want us to understand that we have had some good conversations. It opens up some dialogue for them up in Montpelier, as well as here around town, where they get feedback from citizens in Bellows Falls and Rockingham. There was a comment I got from a responder who said, maybe, and this has to do with the elephant in the room, and I think that was one of the topics that turns up on the page if you look for this one. The topics that we would cover. The elephant in the room I see is Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. Going to give me a bunch of trouble, but because they own the market, they get the lion's share. I call them an elephant, but the reality is just because it's a gargantuan industry, in Vermont and other places. I don't even know where their organization is based. I don't think it's based here, but not what I had heard, some feedback. But it's all related to socialism in Vermont. They eat up the dollars. They get to dispense dollars to landowners like yourself for projects, while they eat up the biggest portion and trickle down the smallest portion to those who need it for individuals who are trying to improve their housing. And the state has set a bunch of laws that say no bank land trust. It all goes to social service agencies. That's their guess. And we live in a corrupt system. That was the comment. And I can't say that's not true. Based upon what I've seen, we are changing our community based upon the monster of large housing agencies like Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. That's the biggest one we have here, who will change the appearance, the flavor. Our whole way of living could possibly change. We're putting, just in Rockingham, Bellows Falls, we're putting in 27 apartments. That's an ongoing concern, and maybe we need a midway check to see how things are going in the community, and perhaps at a trustee meeting would be a good idea, an appropriate place to do that, to see where they are, how they're headed, and when they'll get around to taking applications and so on and so forth. That's just 27. Let's talk about the area-wide plan, which I consider to call, quote unquote, the circus, which is a number of, if any of you go to the rockinghamvt.org site, you'll see the area-wide plan is there, and it has...
Wait, what site?
The rockinghamvt.org. It's the RockBF site. It's actually rockinghamvt.org.
Okay, so that's our
that's
town's
the municipal.
website.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the municipal website.
And this was the all these people that came out maybe a year ago.
Right.
A couple different sessions. We had a lot of kids there. They want some community projects done. They want some They want some trails.
Yep.
They wanted an art center.
Housing was one of those things.
So this community came together. And we voted on a bunch of topics. A certain amount of topics won. That information is on the town website.
Yep.
And now what is happening is the development director, town manager, planning and zoning, town staff, Rockingham Select Board, village and town trustees are moving forward and developing some of these plans that the community wanted. So what's the issue with that? What's the problem there?
The main concern I have is to do with the housing piece. There are so many pieces in this. That's why I call it the circus. There are many moving parts that may move, may not, may fall away. But initially, it's a gigantic plan. And I get ask for more, see what happens in the end. You know, like this is what we want out there. This is the ideal. Will it all happen? Probably not. Mm-hmm. But some parts of it will. And the one that's being focused on right now is the housing piece. The housing piece brings in the Planning Commission, the DRB, which is the Development Review Board, which is input from the community, essentially with community members who are on that, and zoning and economic development, bringing in all this piece that they would like to change the bylaws to, at this point, housing on the island, that particular zone area, would only allow for, what did they say, 53 units.
That's the
of
zoning
housing.
right now.
That's currently as it is in
How
place.
typically does zoning work? So if I live on Burt Street and I have a house and I want to add an apartment, and I went down to zoning and I wanted to add a fourth apartment, I have to get permission from the land abutters.
And
Everyone
and
gets
the DRB has to have an
notified.
application.
The Development Review Board has to have an application.
Right.
And then the land, and I know this happened with Gaetano.
Yep.
Pugnano, when he wanted to expand some of his land and change
with
his
Criff,
road.
yep.
And all of a sudden, all the land abutters. So what happened with him, just a quick backstory, is he has a road. It's like a class 6 road. No one ever goes there. It hardly gets plowed. It's basically his driveway.
It has no back end. It's like a one-way road.
It has no back end. He has
Yep.
all the land back there. So he just wanted to change it to a private driveway. No one had an issue with that until he went to the Development Review Board, and then all of a sudden, all the land abutters got notified, and then they all came out and they wanted money for any land abutting that road. He was getting raked over the coals.
Yep, I understand that.
So that's what happens with the policy that we have now. So if you want to change your house, you want to add a fourth unit, all your neighbors get notified and they can come out and complain, and they can actually squash the plan.
That's true.
They can squash the plan, and then you don't get your land adjusted or a new apartment. So what they're trying to do, I don't know who they is, but what the town is recommending now,
Right. So
That
the
all that goes
economic
away.
development and zoning, the ZA, the zoning administrator, are recommending that we change the zoning bylaws right now, well, shortly, soon, in order to fit more units on the island. Right now, it's zoned, would only cover 53 units. I mean, there are a number of things like setback and size of the units, and I mean, all these different things like parking, all of those play, and there's more to the particular zoned area for the island. We're going to allow 53 units to be built there right now. However, if we change the bylaws as they're requesting and change this house residential piece from conditional, which is what it is right now. Conditional means you have to go to DRB.
Right.
To permitted. Permitted means you don't have to get DRB approval. Permitted usage means they can put up to 150 units on the island. 150
and then
units.
who is they?
That would be
It's-
development. Development.
So the director of development can't just rubber stamp everything that comes through. Doesn't it have to go before the select board or the village board? So they can, once they get the green
No.
light, they
Right.
can hook into any developer that's out there that's
Yep.
willing to come and develop the island and say, yep, I have permission for this many units, away we go. And then you get a building that might be built to code, or
Well, they still have- there's still
design.
building codes still have to
Does
be
like the
applied.
building and design, the aesthetics go before the board? Does anything go before the village, the people, the town, or any of the boards, or is that all?
I'm not
the
really
town
sure.
employee?
I mean, there might be some permits that are needed, like sewage and stuff like that. That's
Right.
probably those kinds
There's
of things.
nothing-
But if they don't have the same amount of setbacks, they don't have a problem with parking, they don't have a problem with how many units can be built within that particular small area, they can build up. So that means the island could wind up with multiple deckers. I don't know, 4 or
Right.
5 deckers, I suppose. I don't really know. I'm kind of, flailing with
Right.
that piece. But I do know if we change it to make it easier for developers to come in and develop the property, they can put up to a maximum of 150. I had this conversation last week with the economic development director.
Right, so 150, but someone at the end of the day, besides a town employee, has to bless that plan, I would think. You're saying,
State requirements, there are still state requirements.
okay, so if they want to come in and put up the gaudiest, ugliest looking building, even though it's within the setback, what's in the fire and safety codes and building codes, they can put up a hideous, ugly looking building with 150 units.
Again, I would doubt that would happen, but
Okay.
there's a possibility if we give them a pass and make these permitted uses, it's supposed to speed up the process, and we understand what speeding up the process means is that they don't have to ask permission. They can put in things without any input from the community. Do we want a change like that to the island? Do we really want to see 150 units? Now, I asked because I was concerned about it and didn't go for it at this point, although I'm only one member of the planning board, is that I was concerned about that moving that fast forward because there'd be no community input on it, which happens at the DRB level because the butters are notified and people have something to say. They said it deters, and I got told this by the municipal manager as well. This deters developers from wanting to come because there's another layer of government. They already have state and federal guidelines they have to follow, but making this a permitted use means there's one less thing they have to do. And my concern with that is what we're growing here. What are we doing to our community? What will it do? I don't even think as the planning chair, I do not believe we even have a good idea and a solid idea of what our current community average citizen is like, what their income's like, what their family size is like, what they expect from our community, what they can get from the community, what their hopes and dreams are. It basically, putting them into some solid form that we can calculate what would work for this community as it is right now, and what the planning board is doing, or the economic development director is doing, or the ZA is doing, that will change our community forever, and not necessarily for the good. Because what do we do? What do our average citizen look like after they're done? I don't know that.
But wasn't that the community forum that we had a year ago? We already asked the community what
No,
they wanted.
housing,
and
but did they say they wanted
housing.
150 units? Now, Gary said these would not be low. He said they would not be
Right.
low-income housing.
Yep.
they would be middle income housing to attract. And you figure, how many citizens is that? If the average apartment could hold 3 people, 2 adults and a child, or 1 adult and 2 children, that's 450 people in our community.
You better open up some more classrooms.
That's gonna change the school. Not necessarily a bad thing with that, because we do have more room in our high school and our middle school than we're not filled, not to capacity. But what will that do to our extra need children? What will that do to our taxes? What will that do to our sewer system and water? Well, what will all these say? What's the impact?
Well, here's the thing about that is the 28 units we're building down next to PK's, go PK's, thank you very much, is 28 units, and that's at $7 million. Right? And that's subsidized by the government. And when subsidies by the government come in, then there's restrictions and there's guidelines and there's requirements for who you can house there. And that's another topic that the community is pretty upset about what's going on there, and we have to bring that into the fold here quickly. But if you're going to go and put in 153 units in a town like Bellows Falls that has 3 pizza places, 4 hair salons, and 2 bars and 2 coffee shops, you're going to have to supply 150 of those units with food, grocery, drugstores, you know.
One grocery store. We only have one.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
But also, if a 28 unit is $7 million, 153 units.
It's 150, but still.
With 150 with it's going to be mixed use. So with restaurants downstairs to build a project like that is what, maybe 200 million?
Well, you got to figure multiply by 7.
And you're not going to get private funding for that. So that's all subsidized funding.
Yeah.
It's all tax break
Right,
funding,
but this is
things
from,
like
and,
that.
and I don't know how that works, because it's for middle income, not for low income.
That's what we're saying is for middle income. But by the time you get done building a $250 million project, it's going to be all USDA government subsidized, all HUD subsidized, and it's going to be HUD rates, which is typically
low income.
could be lower income. And there's nothing wrong with lower. It could it could be fluctuating income. There's nothing wrong with that. But now you're inviting that many more people, that is going to be what is the burden to our small town and our infrastructure.
Change. I don't want to
will
be
it change?
I don't want to be New York. I don't want to be Burlington. I don't even want to be Brattleboro. If we're taking the template from Brattleboro, I don't want to be that. That's not what Rockingham is. That's not what Bellows Falls is, and that's not what the community people who live here and have lived here forever. So while we're inviting the middle income, maybe single person who has an IT job and doesn't, although I think those jobs are kind of overloaded, but whatever. If they come here, what are they going to want from this community? What will they change in this community? And what will be left of the people who lived here their whole lives? Will they even be here? Or will you just see them on Old Home Day?
Well, Old Home Day is pretty slow right now too. Will they even come back, or will the whole community change? I tell you, I have a few people that have moved in from Connecticut and New York, and they love the charm of this town. They don't want it to become Connecticut and New York, but
and that's good.
There's a development going on and a process going on that for some reason the town employees and some of the community members think it's needed. So when we change the zoning and bylaws for that particular project, is it going to be changed townwide or just for that particular project?
It would change townwide.
Townwide.
Yeah, if the bylaws are changed, they're changed for everyone.
So you don't, as a citizen, I can do whatever I want in my carriage barn. I don't have to ask my neighbors. I can put it in an apartment.
Let's see. Right now, you're R7, I think. Is that what it is? R7, but the island's not R7 because it's industrial 14.
So that's what I mean. Are they just looking to change industrial 14 zoning bylaws?
Yeah, that's not what I'm sure about.
Okay.
Because we haven't got there yet.
Okay.
We haven't finished the town plan. Town plan is supposed to be finished sometime this year.
Okay.
We are just about done with the majority of the chapters. We have to bring them back to the select board. They have to get their approval. Then we have to have public hearings about them before they get finalized.
So what's your question to the community here? Like, do our viewers and the people that are going to share this feel the same way about the change that's coming?
I mean, is this what
do
we
they
want?
even know?
Yeah.
Is this what we want? And
No, they
How
don't.
do people know
I mean,
about
they
this?
know what they wanted when we had the community meetings, which you and I were both part of.
Yep.
And their desires to move these things forward, and also part of that was there was the area-wide plan, which kind of ran in at the same time as the ARPA funds, and what to do with all the money. That still hasn't been decided.
Which is not
ARPA
a
funds
lot
are
of
not
money.
being spent. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, we have 880,000. The village has.
Yep.
The town has 440,000, and I think Saxons River has maybe 220. It's sort of
not
like
a
that,
lot.
based upon population numbers.
Yep.
Is how they got as municipalities. That's how the
Mm-hmm.
money was distributed. That's not a lot of money. That's clearly not going to do any of these projects,
Mm-hmm.
but it might seed some of these projects.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's seeding the projects, the community still has to say. I mean, the community can say yes, they like that, or no, they don't. But when you have to look at the big picture, which is what the economic development and the zoning office are looking at, they're seeing changes we don't see. The public doesn't see that. So I'd like them to weigh in. What do they think about changing their community for ever once these happen? Now, over the next, I would say, give it another 3-4 years, though, before this really starts moving. It might be faster, but what do you think of your community? This is the community you are raising your kids in, the community that you came back to as an older adult, and have family, or you're a senior and you're here. What is happening? What will happen? Will this be for the better? Will it not? It's hard to really say for sure, but it moves to me. It's too fluid. What's wrong with having to have a conditional use and having to come to the DRB to talk about it? I don't really see it's that kind of a problem. They're acting like it's a problem. And I'm concerned, and I want the public to talk about what they think will happen when this happens. Because we're not just talking about fixing old buildings, which is one of the major things people wanted in housing. This is about brand new buildings and using the island for that. Along with God knows what other things from the area-wide plan will actually turn up. So we'd like to get input. It would be great to bring some of that to the table next month, if we know what's happening.
And so, mentioning that, how was it that Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust was able to take a concrete garage and develop, 27 units in there? So it wasn't that hard of a process to go before the Development Review Board,
No,
which is the DRB.
they did it. They probably didn't like it, and they gave us the bait and switch. Sorry, but it's true. They gave us this big plan. People go, oh yeah, we're going to retain the look of the building, and it'll look just great, and all this stuff. And then it started to morph. It turned into
Okay.
something else. They changed what the building was. And as far as I'm concerned, if you do an assessment, you ought to know what your rebar looks like before you come to the table and say, we're going to do this. They had to have more money. They didn't have enough money. When they realized they had to change it, they added apartments, or at least one apartment. I think would they get rid of the storefront they were supposed
There
to have?
was supposed to be a storefront.
That's
and
gone
maybe
too.
a pub or
Coffee shop or something. I don't know. We need another coffee shop.
Yeah, I know.
But something. I mean, we currently now have a few storefronts that aren't open, that are vacant. And that's always in a flux, of course. We try to keep it vibrant downtown. We try to keep it exciting. There's, the organizations try to do things to spruce stuff up and stuff like that. But there'll always be a little bit of flux. But as far as the storefront goes, it's just another thing to make it look like it was before. That was what people said yes to. And then they got told, no, that's not what's going to happen. And now we're at the point where, and they're in construction, what they would continue to do. And they did the process, but they would like to be a developer too. I'm sure that would have no problem getting in and doing what they needed to without approval from the community.
Right.
So, I mean,
Well-
they're building in Putney, and I'm hearing complaints from people in Putney about that process too.
And I don't know if our viewers or whoever's going to be watching this, or if you share this, that brings in the community concern with what's going on there. It's one thing when, a developer comes in and they say, oh, that building over there, that is a garage, we're going to develop that. And everybody just kind of, oh yeah, it's going to get developed. And then a chain link fence goes up. But then when there's activity,
Yeah.
and then you see the elevator shaft go in, and then you see the 2x4s go up, and the walls that are made of glue and pressed wood, and that everyone's complaining about, and when everyone starts to see, you can see the actual work that is going into this building. People are now saying they don't feel like the materials are quality materials. They're not sure about the workers on site. You can sit right in the parking lot of
Yeah,
Walgreens
and watch 'em.
and watch what's going on. And that's what's happening. Local people are watching what's going on. Other business owners are watching what's going on. I was accosted pretty much the other night by a business owner that said, I can't believe we're at $9 million for this project. And I'm not sure where we're at for that project.
Yeah.
But the community is getting upset about what's going on because now they're hearing more news about drug bust, violence in Springfield, people getting shot, people getting killed. We had an incident here in Bellows Falls where a girl was sleeping. Big guy came in the window. The father came in to help her. He got beat up. That guy also in Brattleboro went into a window and the owner shot him. So we've got, situations here between Springfield and Brattleboro where it flows back and forth. And now we're putting in 27 units with an organization that is known to house people that have questionable background.
Okay, now you're saying something I didn't say about.
Questionable No, we're talking about the development at Panda North.
Yeah.
That just had.
Is that a Wyndham?
Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust runs that.
Yeah.
They built that, and it's a place for homeless people to go that basically can't find shelter and for whatever other reason. Well, they had a drug bust there, major drug bust, and violence is going on there. So people are now coming and asking me, is Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust going to take those people, move them out of Brattleboro, and put them in Bellows Falls?
Right, yeah.
So if anyone is watching this, we really need to know what the answer to that is, and if anybody is aware. But one thing that I stress to Deb, who is the president of the village, the trustees, is I think we need to create a forum for the community and have Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust executive director and staff come back and answer these questions.
Yep.
And pledge that, we're not going to bring in derelicts from other community projects that we have because we're getting heat from those towns and from those land abutters, and we need to move them out.
Yeah.
We need to know that, and the money that we're going to get to offset the tax, and the school district tax and everything else.
Is it worth it?
I'm really hoping that it's a few apartments that we're going to move in some people that may be of questionable background, and we're going to work with them because we have the services here. But then the rest are all going to be professional people or people that are actually working and contributing.
We have to back up a bit because Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust is hands off once the building's completed. They use a management team.
They use
Stewart Management. Property Management. Aren't they responsible for interviewing the people that they allow into the building, and what do they do? I would like to know because we're seeing this going on. What are they doing about these people? Do they displace them? Can they move them out, or do they have the same problems that you have if you had that going on in one of your places?
Well, when you need a return on investment, so you're not making money if your apartments aren't full. So initially, you take A grade applicants. And, the professional artist on Canal Street, right?
Yeah.
We're going to fill that building with artists. Well, we don't have them filled with artists. We have them filled with people from human service agencies now, right?
I didn't know. Well,
Pathways,
first of all, I didn't know that was what was going on Canal Street.
I used to work for Pathways, so I put a few tenants in there.
Yeah.
And that was only because I backed the tenant. The tenant was a good tenant. We were going to work with the tenant. It's an organization that works with them. But they were like, you know what, we're not getting any applicants, and we need the money, we'll move them in. So we're going to build a 27-unit building. How many professionals are going to come and live right next to, or across the street from Walgreens and next to a bar?
Yeah.
And on a busy street, by a busy bridge, that are willing to pay market rent right now for a 2-bedroom is $1,100.
Oh, Jesus. Well,
that's market rent.
Yeah, but that isn't what Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust is going to charge.
Fair market rent is $1,089 for a 2-bedroom, and then there's allowances.
But did they get to charge that? I mean, I thought their rents were below $1,000.
If you're talking about market rent, a 2-bedroom right now, and you can Google it, HUD rate, a fair market rent in Southern Vermont is like $1,155 for a 2-bedroom, and that's what I was told that they wanted to rent. That's what they wanted to rent. They wanted to do fair market. not HUD rate markets, but fair market rent.
Okay.
And then they were going to have a few apartments for subsidized
Right.
apartments. So they're going to have to find, 25 people that are willing to pay, $1,000 to $1,100 a month to rent an apartment next to a bar and across from a drugstore and a busy intersection.
Yeah. Well, I know what I've seen in multiple buildings that are managed by both Stewart Property and others. And that is, you have a lot of people who are smoking and not supposed to be smoking. I'm sure it's going to be a non-smoking building. I get it. Because that makes sense if they
They're
did
all
that.
going to be outside.
They're all going to be outside,
Hanging out
on the
PK's.
sidewalk next to PK's and across the street
PK's
at
is probably gonna get
at
a lot of
Walgreens.
business
That's going
from
to be
this.
that's going to be lovely. And there's also the Chinese
already-
restaurant right next
but
to
there's
them.
already an issue in the community with PK's having that little seating area. So there's going to be some, unless the
Friction.
smoking is out back, like by, what's her name? The auctioneer.
Oh, by Susan.
Yeah.
Sharon Michelli's.
Bocelli's. They
What's
all
she selling?
smoke out back there. So maybe they'll have to smoke out back.
Yeah, but there's also a couple of houses in between there too. But
Yep.
there's parking issues. I know that's going to be
Where are they all going to park?
a mess. I mean, supposedly
island?
you're supposed to be able to park in the Centennial lot, but we're going to be putting off alignment bridge there. We're going to be putting redoing the bridge turning into walking bridge, right? The
Yeah.
Depot Street Bridge. That's all going to cause a mess. This building's going to be probably completed in less than 6 months.
So if you have $1,100 or $1,200 to throw down in rent, you want your car right there in the driveway.
not gonna
You don't want
happen.
it down the
I know.
road and then walk up the hill.
I know. It's not going to happen, which means they're all going to be parking over across the street of Walgreens
Or they're going
where they're
to
going to get towed.
be people with no cars.
Yes. But how many people nowadays still have no car? I mean, some do. But we're not Burlington with a big bus system and all that kind
We
of.
have a great bus system, but it's going to be people that don't have cars. And so
would have to be.
who are those, that's what I mean. They're going to build this thing and say, oh, we're going to get all the professionals. The professionals are going to say, no way.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have to fill it with, oh, we're going to take some people from Brattleboro and put them up here. And then they can get on the bus and drive back down to Brattleboro and come back. And it's going to be a mess.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
going to be a mess. And I think that I wish this community would realize this, and let's bring Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust back in and have a conversation about who really is going to be able to go in this
Okay, but
building.
include Stewart Property Management because
yeah.
they are going to be handling it once Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust is
Right.
Finished
Right.
the job. So
Right.
It needs to
But
be
that
twofold
building
in order to understand.
doesn't. They're only the management company. It doesn't
No, but
get reverted back to them. So all of the issues that come out of that building
Yeah.
fall back on the reputation of Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust.
Yeah, but Stewart Property Management, they put the applicants in, right?
they do. They
are responsible at
They're
the get-go.
responsible, but they won't be put in the spotlight like Wyndham
Windsor.
Housing.
Oh no, I
is.
get that, but I think there's no point in having them there if you ask them questions that get that close to the ground, and Stewart Property Management isn't there to answer. You won't get any answers. So the only way to make that work is to have a representative from both who can answer those questions. What is your process? What's your procedure for these things? How do you handle these problems?
But
I mean, and I'm hearing from the community this is over the last several years, problems in the Stewart Property Management buildings that we currently have about drug addiction and other problems going on in the hallways and getting into people's apartments and sometimes ripping them off and stuff like that. That's happened in some of their properties. I'm not saying just here, but wherever they have multi-apartment buildings, not the smaller stuff we see on some of the side streets, but the bigger apartment buildings. What are they going to do about that? What are they doing about it? Because obviously the people who are currently living in their buildings don't think they're doing anything about it. So that conversation needs to be a full one, not just a half
so the
conversation.
property manager is the property manager, and he's taking direction from the owner, and the owner is Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. So yeah, if we have concerns with how the properties are being, those buildings down by me on Pine Street were $27,000 a unit back in the day, which was like 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
that was, you might as well have said that was $300,000 a year. They're beautiful. They're beautiful buildings. I know they lost a great property manager, Travis.
Yeah.
He left there and he's working for the town now. He was spot on. They have some really good staff.
Yep.
that go in and turn the apartments over. I know that. But so that is really, I think, in the wheelhouse of, the village trustees. Why when they approached, why didn't we say to them, listen, we want updates quarterly, or we want you to come meet with us. We want to talk about the clientele that you're going to house. That's a lot of units. That's 27
I don't know.
units. Well, you were on the board, right?
I'm on the trustee board, but let me tell you that the trustees were not asked because development and a DRB and zoning are all town.
Oh, so the Rockingham
So the
Village trustees
didn't get asked.
So then I know you were having a question with one of the trustees
Right.
about
Oh,
the
yeah.
value, and I won't say the name of the trustee, but the value of this particular organization
Yeah.
coming in and paying taxes that
Yeah.
we weren't getting taxes on before.
Yeah, I
why
get that.
was that a conversation with the village trustees? Because we were going to get taxes.
The conversation was because I believe that we will be negatively impacted in our services.
Okay, so then
Fire, police, water, sewer.
They came back to you and said,
Yeah.
but we're getting compensated
Yeah.
financially.
Now we charge
Okay.
them the same rate as everybody else for water and sewer. But when you add more people and maybe some problematic people, there's no guarantee, and I believe they wouldn't 100% guarantee they won't rent mainly to people who live in our community who already need housing. There'll be a lot of outsiders. I don't want to say it that way, but just saying people who are not from our community who we brought into our community with any and all of the baggage that they bring.
Right. That's what we're going to get.
And we're going to have more police calls and more fire calls and stuff like that. I mean, I know the building I live next to has gotten a lot of calls about
Which is
burning
Riverside.
toast or whatever it is. Yeah, Riverview. And,
Riverview.
And they get a lot of calls to the fire department who turn up, not as much as they used to, but used to be quite a bit. Depends on who's living in the building, right? So some people are burning their toast, wink, wink, all the time, and there has to be a fire call, and then they come rushing in. But that's an impact on services because we're paying stipends or hourly to every firefighter that turns up, and then we have our chief who's salaried, and so that will increase the more times you have to run a truck, plus gas and all that other stuff. So think about additional 27 apartments with perhaps anywhere up to from 1 to 3 people in it.
Yeah, and the front door is right on Main Street. You're
Yeah.
not, you're going to be blocking traffic. You're going to be blocking access to PK's,
Yep.
Walgreens. How many calls are going to be made? I think that because this conversation has come up a lot in the community, we're not just bringing it up here because we're hanging out together, that somehow, and I don't know how we do this, we invite Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust back,
To meeting,
send an
yeah.
email and say,
Well, Uncle,
and get the community involved, though, as
It's
best
like
as we
making
can.
sure that we get it out there so that people know when they're coming to the table that other people in the community can speak and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that they have community buy-in, but once they've got it, they don't necessarily want to come revisit it. So as things change, ask again. How do you think we're doing? Let's check the temperature. What do you think the community is feeling about it now? They don't need to. They need community buy-in to get approval for their federal funds and their state funds. They need them.
I don't know. When I ran the bus company and we had a project going, we would make sure that we would get put on the agenda with the select board.
And that's good.
At a couple different occasions.
But I haven't
through
seen
the project.
a whisper of anything with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust since they got approvals for the projects.
Okay.
When they had to come back to us, they came back to us, and after that was done.
Yep.
Despite how disgruntled some people were. Again, a lot of people, I would like the community to really weigh in on this, and hopefully lots of people get to see this, either on Fact
think we
TV or
need to
YouTube or Facebook.
Change the title to Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust.
Well, it's just because
development.
they're a very big, gigantic organization that comes in, goes boom, and impacts our community in one fell swoop with a number of apartments. People go, it's 27 apartment, who cares? But multiply that by 3 people, possibly 3 people, maybe more. I don't know what their size will be: 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. That has an impact on everything that we have here. We'll have children moving into the community, which will impact our education. We have adults who may have some real problems, which will impact our services. I mean, we're getting paid taxes, but in exchange for what? And so that's what I think the thing is. Change is needed means we are moving forward and being moved forward without permission. I mean, that's how it's happening. As you throw in a big monster who puts in, boom, that many apartments, or say what happens on the area-wide plan, 150 units, boom, if we change the bylaws. That's going to have a massive impact on us that we don't realize because it'll be forced upon us. It'll be too late. We won't have any say in it.
And that is because certain people get on certain committees
Uh-huh.
and in part change, and certain people run for select board and trustees because they have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So where is the Rockingham Select Board in all this, and why wasn't that brought up when Windsor Housing Trust came to put in this building?
Because all I can conjecture is that they were sold on the bill of goods of getting, a building working and town the tax rolls with more significant way than it was because it was in such disrepair, it had low value, so on and so forth. But it's only taxes. The select board gets taxes, but they have a highway department, and that's it. So really, it's the village of Bellows Falls that's mainly impacted by every change that the select board makes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why I try to pay more attention. I say try because sometimes I don't go to the meetings anymore like I used to, and watching what they're doing because everything they do impacts us. Some of the stuff we do impacts them, but because they're the town and they have the main muscle, and they are the zoning administrator, they have the development director. We don't pay for any of that. The village doesn't pay for that. We pay 50% of the other employees, like the manager, and that sort of thing. And then that's our only option for influence, but we're not included in the conversations.
But we have the most development. You're not developing a 80 unit out on Parker Hill in Rockingham.
I know.
This is where all the development happens. This is where all the issues happen.
This is where all the services
This is
are.
where all the drugs are sold. This is where all the drug dealers come in, all in the village.
I know. And
It's like the
and I
tail
keep
wagging
saying
the
that.
dog.
Why aren't we developing outside
Yeah.
of Bellows Falls? We're 1.4 square miles. We have over 1,000 apartments already. We're adding 27.
Yep.
And then the future of the area-wide plan would like to add another 150. I mean, I know we don't have the population we used to have
tell
from
you
20,
though,
30 years ago, but does that mean it's the right population?
I was going to buy 3 acres of land in Rockingham. 3 acres, that is, what do we got, 2 acres on the island here? And we're going to put in 150
50 units plus a bunch of other
You know
stuff.
what I was told? I was told I can only put 3 tiny houses on 3 acres.
because of
put
the zoning area.
Right, but that's what I mean. So if we're talking about we can do 180 units out in Rockingham on 103 heading to Chester, and everybody can just get in their car and drive, they're not going to do that. They don't want to do that. They don't want to impact.
No, they want all the services. They want access to the downtown. The downtown is Bellows Falls. We are the heart of Rockingham.
The downtown's Rockingham.
Yeah.
The downtown is the heart of Rockingham.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, and we are the downtown. It's kind of funny to call it a downtown. We're a village, but that's what it is, and it's all here. So everyone wants to be here. They don't want to be outside in Rockingham, where you could put a lot bigger units.
But you can't because I tried to.
Okay,
I told Chuck, I'm like, I'm going to put in
commercial building.
15 tiny houses on 3 acres. Oh no.
Okay, but
you can only get 1 unit per acre out
then
there.
change the bylaws for that zoning area.
That's what they want to leave Rockingham pristine.
No,
And then bring all.
That's not fair.
Overdevelop the village. That is going to get taxed.
I know.
Meaning
we only have so
all
much
the
area.
Services are going to, the ambulance, the police.
We
the
can't make our
fire,
parking any wider.
the parking.
They want to change that too in the zoning so that people could park on their lawns and shit.
Yeah.
And I'm not happy with
No.
that either.
No,
It's like
we're
some narrow roads.
We're going backwards.
I know.
Yeah.
And that's what they'd like to do. It's like, well, I'm sorry, zoning director doesn't live here. Zoning administrator doesn't live in this community. He doesn't even live in the same state. The development director has.
Wait, we have we have a zoning person who's on the board that doesn't live in the
Well, the
state?
zoning administrator is Chuck.
Oh,
He lives in
yeah.
Walpole,
Yeah.
New Hampshire.
He loves this town, though. He works really
does,
hard.
But,
kudos to Chuck.
But cramming
he's
things
busy.
together, that's a problem.
Well, he wants progress. He wants to see things move.
But what does he want us to look like? That's what I want to know. What is his vision of Bellows Falls in 10 years?
So
what is the economic development director of vision of Bellows Falls in 10 years. What do they think we're going to look like?
So isn't that the town manager's job to sit down in a review of the employees and say, what do you think? What do you think your job entails, and what's your vision? Like, have we asked employees, what's your vision? You have Rebecca come in and see you once a week and talk about the bullshit she's going through.
Yep.
What's your vision for the town? Like, why don't we ask them?
I don't think that's been asked. I mean, they haven't said there hasn't, but I believe they've moved forward with this plan, which doesn't say, and in 10 years, this is what the community's going to look like. This is what the average citizen's going to look like, and everybody else who don't make that money, they out of here. I mean, that's kind of I see happening. That's what's happened with a lot of our elderly people our senior citizens, of which I'm almost one, moving into apartments because they can't afford to pay the taxes on the house they had. You know, a beautiful home, which is getting run down because they couldn't keep it, and they wound up not being able to afford to fix it, so they moved out. So I'm going to see more of that.
You know, and I'm okay. You know, I look at that, and I have a multifamily.
I'm just looking at the time.
Okay, I have a multifamily, and I think, all right, when I get elderly, I can still manage this house. I see a lot of people deciding to move out of the big house and go live in an apartment. They need a downstairs floor. 150 units on the island would work for them. I know you're like, I'm going to belt you over the head, Rebecca, but, you know, if we were in this community and we were both 80 and in 25 years, we're maybe living on the island together. And then I'd be like, all right, that's cool. I got the pub downstairs. I've got an extra grocery store. You know, we're on Fact TV. I can stay in my community.
Can I sit on my porch and look at the beautiful mountains across the river that I do every day, that I appreciate? What will happen when you build up, say, for instance, building up
Well, there needs
building
to be a skyline limit. There needs to be a cap.
Is there one? I mean, it's only as far. It's up. It has to be approved by the fire department.
But that's a good point, because once you start losing the airspace and your view, the taxes on your house should go down, because you no longer have that tax view. So that needs to be.
I don't think they do. What has to happen instead is you have to fight your taxes, and you have to bring it before the.
Well, if I have a big old ugly brick building in front of me instead of Fall Mountain, then I mean, I'm going to go and complain about my taxes because I just lost my view.
Yeah, you just lost your view.
Yeah.
It looks nicer now with Robertson Paper Mill gone, but eventually there'll be something on there.
There'll be something there.
So I'll just have to get used to it. It was there before, but I like the old brick building, falling apart as it was. It just had a certain, it gave a flavor of the community, and now that's gone. Of course, we know before that it used to be a hotel, right? That burned down there. So I know that it was different for people of, say, 100 years ago.
150 units is not going to look pretty no matter how high you slice it.
No,
it's not going to look pretty.
The area of property seems to be a very small piece, because it's obviously going to be multi-layered.
Yeah.
So how many floors are we going to put in here for 150 units? But I know we're running out of time. We can never cover this subject, but what I want is, in the original picture we saw at the beginning here, is I want people to take their hands off their ears. I want people to take their hands off their eyes and take their hands off their mouth and really listen, learn, and hear and speak about what it is that they are seeing in their community, and give us that information on our email address, which will be shown on the screen. And also, you can always respond to us via Messenger. You know who we are. It's easy to read. I know, I have no problem getting those things on my Facebook page. I'm very respondent to citizens about their concerns. It all becomes part of the big puzzle, that people see all these little pieces, but they don't see what the bigger picture is going to do to us. And I want people to say they're happy with it, or there's already these problems going on, it's probably going to get worse. Or what they specifically see. We want people to be open and honest. I know that people have a problem doing that. They're afraid to speak out because they don't want any backlash. I get that. And we were just talking about that before we started taping, that you have to be ready to take the backlash if you open your mouth. And that's what we're here to do.
But if you actually reach out to us and email us, we don't say your name. We have confidentiality statement. We don't bring up anything. But if you have concerns and you want to know more, and you want to push this particular topic along with the development of the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust building going on next to PK's and across from Walgreens, and you'd like to see an invitation to Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust in front of the Rockingham Select Board, let us know and we can get it on the agenda. It may take a couple months because I know the executive director is busy and, she'll need to carve out some time and be prepared, but, maybe we can get something going in October for a meeting or a heads up or that might
Definitely try.
be too not much notice, but still just an appearance to
Making
get
a
some
note
community
right now.
people together. So please let us know, and if you can, just share the information and let us know what you think about what's going on right now downtown at the old garage site.
Yeah. You think we're done?
I think we're done. Yeah.
For the evening. We haven't.
Yeah.
We have not picked a new topic for next month, and my wheel got dirty hanging out on my porch, so I don't have the wheel to give it a flip and see what we can do. We'll redo that and then bring it for the next time. But we'll come up with a topic.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I do want to talk about where a lot of people are going to lose a subsidy, which was VRAP.
Oh, VRAP. Could you put that back up?
VRAP. If you guys, anyone's on
Thank you.
VRAP or anyone it's on VRAP, please look at your email because they sent out an email the other day that said, your funding's done. We're done. This is your last rent payment if you're on Section 8 and you get VRAP, or you're going to get a certain percentage less in November and then one in December. And then after that, we're done. We're not going to support you financially for your rent, your heat, your electricity. And some of these people were getting their rent, heat, and electricity paid for the last 18 months, and it's over. And some people just started the program. I have 2 tenants that just started the program, and it's ending before they even get their first check. So this is a lot of money that we're going to lose in this community. And I contacted my attorney, Snow, at Salmon and Nordstrom, and I said, we're probably going to end up with a lot of evictions starting this winter of people that don't have the money to pay their rent because they probably didn't save money when somebody else was paying. And so please, you're going to see either an email or a letter in the mail with this heading.
If you're already in the program.
If you're in the program, pay attention to it. Figure out what you're going to do. Hopefully your landlord will contact you. If you need help, email us, and I will gladly guide you and direct you and help you. Sevka has been a huge resource in answering questions. But share this information because people are going to lose a lot of funding that they've been used to for over a year right now.
Don't give up hope if you have already, if you're already at that point where you just found out that you can't.
This was a month notice.
I know.
We're cutting you off. This
Yeah.
was a month notice. You get nothing. It wasn't, hey, in 6 months or 4 months, plan ahead and we're done. This was, oh my God, we just realized we have no money in the coffers and we're done paying. I think we need a letter to the governor. I think we need a letter to our legislators to say they can't cut us off at the knees because the funding was up to 18 months.
Yeah.
So when my clients applied 2 months ago, they thought they had up to 18 months to get this money.
Right, yeah.
They were planning their life
on
and
that.
They got 2 months and they're being shut off.
And they will still take applications through the end of September. So if you just came up against it, like you lost your job or you thought you had money to catch up and you can't get caught up no matter how much you try, I know people's pride gets in the way, you can still apply. I don't know how much funding is available. Again, some of us need to talk to our legislators and other things and try to put a face on this. And get some extension, because giving people a month to know they're going to lose their funding after they just got it for some of them, it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to stick to your promises.
Yeah.
I mean, if they won't, why should anybody else?
Who would that be for us? Leslie Goldman.
And
Carolyn's out.
So we only have one right now.
So I think we need to send that along to Leslie and say we need to have a conversation.
That's our
about this.
representative. We could go to Leslie Goldman. Also, who's our senator? White, Jeanette White.
Okay, yeah.
And I think there might be one other.
Yeah.
But Jeanette White for sure.
Becca Ballant.
Becca Ballant, that's another one. So we could, those are people's names, putting them out there. We don't say your name if you give us an email, or a conversation with us, but we will talk about them because they're elected officials. They got to take it. They don't have to like it, but they got to take it. But I think that we're done. And remember, this is also on Facebook for those of you on there. I've seen the VSHA stuff on there, also under the Springfield
Supportive
housing.
Yep.
SHHP. It's also there. And if you can't remember any of that, just hit us up with an email or a text, and we will get you that information because we want to make sure you can do what you need to do to get yourself by.
Yep.
It's important. So
Yeah, this is going to end at the worst time of the year.
of course it is. We're
With
heading up to
heating.
winter. Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, it looks
all
like
right.
we're done, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you next month.
Boop.